Welcome to my Black Ops 4 Dark Ops Challenge Guide series. In this episode, I'll be covering a multiplayer Dark Ops challenge called From the Depths. This one says to get 25 kills against enemies that are on land when you are shooting at them from underwater with a primary or secondary weapon. Now, unlike the Blackout Dark Ops calling cards, these ones actually look nice. Unfortunately, they aren't animated, but at least they give you a bit of incentive to go for. So this one is actually the easiest multiplayer Dark Ops challenge that I know of. Now don't get me wrong here, it's time consuming and can be frustrating, but at least it doesn't require outrageous conditions like some of the other ones. So the first thing to note is that there's only 2 good maps with water to achieve this challenge. If you're watching this video at a later date, I'm sure they'll add some water in some of the DLC maps. But as of right now, the 2 maps you can complete this on are Contraband and Icebreaker. So I'll be showing you the good spots on these 2 maps, and then we'll talk tactics. So let's look at Icebreaker first. There's actually quite a bit of water on this map, most of which is found along the outskirts towards the back. There's only one true viable spot that I found, but I wanted to mention the effects of the icy water before showing that. As you can see, when you submerge yourself, your screen turns frosted. This can make things incredibly hard to see, and it lasts until you exit the water. In addition, it'll also frost up your scope if you have one attached. Now as for the ideal spot on the map, you can find it where the B flag is in domination or where the A zone is in control. Directly in front of this hotspot is a very shallow body of water. Now despite its shallowness, it's possible to fully submerge here, and then you've got a great line of sight on the B flag or the A zone. To your right, you can also pick off people emerging from their spawn. Behind you, you can pinpoint people attempting to flank you from the ship on both sides. And then there's an underwater entrance as well. Now if you're counting, that's 5 entrances you have to keep track of. While that does mean you can get a lot of kills potentially, it also makes you a sitting duck. There's no way you can guard all 5 of these entrances, so anticipate to die a lot here. The next map we're going to look at is Contraband. Now this map has actual water that's not Titanic iceberg infested. You won't get the frosty vision from it either. The first spot you can use is on the right side of the map. It's a shallow pool that leads to the main body of water. It's possible to fully submerge here and pick people off. Now if you traverse the waterways behind this area, you'll see the bridge with the ladder. This is an extremely hot spot, and it's where the B flag is in domination. Unfortunately, you can't really see anyone on the bridge from here. You can pick people off in the window, but that's about it. Continuing on through this waterway, you'll emerge at my favorite spot. This large area is frequented by enemies routinely, and you should be able to pick a lot of people off here. Again, the issue is there's so many spots to cover that you'll likely die a lot as well. Now lastly, you can go towards the back of the map and submerge yourself here to hit a few spawn locations. Now if you couldn't tell by now, there's a huge issue with being underwater. You can't see jack squat. Everything above the water becomes extremely blurry, and this will get you killed repeatedly. But the enemies located above the water can see you crystal clear, and you're more or less a sitting duck in the water. So while you struggle to see the faintest movement, they'll have 20/20 vision on you. So our goal is to remedy this as best as we can, which brings us to the class setup. For a weapon, I'd highly recommend an assault rifle or an LMG. There's nothing worse than finally spotting an enemy while you're underwater, only to get hit markers with an SMG and then die. Ensure you have a weapon capable of decent ranges. Next, you need the acoustic sensor. The red alert of an approaching enemy on your radar is crucial for awareness when you're submerged in the water. Now lastly, the thermal scope. In this game, it's called the NVIR attachment. And there's only 4 weapons in the assault rifle or LMG category that can run this attachment. The Titan, the VKM, the ICR, and the Vapor. If you like the tactical rifles though, all 3 of those are capable of equipping this. The reason I recommend this scope is because it helps immensely in hitting your shots with the blurry underwater vision. Being able to see the heat source of your enemy is a gift from God for this challenge. I also tried the target finder, which in this game is called the threat detector. I'm not a fan of this optic though. It's quite bulky, and only the outline of the scope lights up red. Still, it's more efficient than no scope at all or a red dot sight underwater, but it just doesn't compare to the thermal. So other than having an assault rifle, the acoustic sensor, and the thermal scope, everything else is really up to you. I should note that you yourself have to be 100% under the water, and your enemy has to be anywhere but in the water. If you both kill each other in the water, it doesn't count. And by the way, you can be fully submerged underwater for approximately 10 seconds. At that point, you take 15 damage until you die or pop up for a breath of air. Now of course, one of the things that makes this challenge so tedious is the fact that these 2 maps come up whenever they feel like it. You could lobby surf to try and wait for these maps to pop up in the rotation, but it'll likely be pretty slow going. As for game modes, I had the easiest time in free-for-all. If you're playing team-based game modes, there's the chance of teammates ganking your kill. It's already hard enough to find enemies while you're underwater, but to have one in your sights and a teammate steal it, that's pretty frustrating. Now the tactics are pretty self-explanatory. You already know the class loadout and you know the 2 maps to accomplish this challenge on, so make it a priority to run to the body of water you like best. As I mentioned earlier, on Icebreaker, the B flag is ideal. You just have to remain on high alert for someone to seek revenge on you, or flank you from any of the 5 directions they can possibly pop out from. Contraband is a bit more tricky to lure enemies to your body of water, but some of the spawns in free-for-all place enemies right next to you. Remember to keep an eye on your minimap to watch for when your acoustic sensor lights up an enemy. The goal here is to dive down, observe for enemies, pop back up to grab a breath, dive down, and repeat. Unfortunately, there's no indication as to what your kill count tally is. You don't get any special medal for killing someone while you're underwater. However, with that said, you can tell when you're almost halfway there. Once you get 10 underwater kills, you get the Frogman challenge complete, which is exactly that, getting 10 underwater kills. From that point, you obviously only need 15 more kills to complete the challenge. Now the last thing to note is a specialist character. I'd highly recommend Crash or Recon. With Crash, you can use the TAC 5 to boost your health to 200, and with this, hopefully outlive at least one more opponent than you normally would. Likewise, Recon's Vision Pulse can help you preemptively get credit for this challenge. Once you have the Vision Pulse, save it until you're fully submerged in the water. Then activate it and hopefully pick off some identified enemies. And that, as they say, is that. Now I won't lie to you here, this challenge took me quite a few hours to complete. The fact that you can only do it on 2 maps out of 14 make it time consuming. And even as a somewhat skilled player, I was only averaging about 3 to 5 underwater kills a match. You'll find yourself running to your sweet spot for more than half the match. And then the other half of the match is just waiting for an enemy to run by while you're constantly bobbing up and down in the water. Not to mention you'll start to tick enemies off after a while. If you kill the same person repeatedly, then you'll turn into their Moby Dick and they'll come back and hunt you like a whale repeatedly until you get out of the water. This challenge probably dropped my KD ratio more than I'd like to admit. If you find yourself having trouble killing enemies in the first place, give Hardcore a try. If you're pre-ADSing while underwater anyway, you may as well ensure that your first bullet counts in Hardcore mode. So again, the 2 keys to success here are to know your ideal bodies of water that you can fully submerge yourself in, and then to use the thermal scope to better acquire your targets. Using these tactics, you should find your aquatic ambience sooner rather than later.